So Vincent and I have been working on this visual for, oh gosh, a year now. And my idea for this was really to help people in a community see who else is in the community, what projects are in the community, because it's a request that most people are making in every community. And one of my main goals in designing something was to make it collaborative and to also make it editable so that the individuals in the community, when they see the map, could interact with the map and change the information that was there. And those two things, collaborative and editable, was a pretty decent hurdle to get through. I felt this was important because coming from the perspective of the users, I'm more that's more my background than the tech side. Coming at it from the user's perspective, I felt like maps were great, but they always felt static to me. And if I saw something on a map that I thought was either needed changing or it was information about me and I wanted to edit it, it seemed like there was a lot of friction to do that. And so this was a step both to create something that was going to be more engaging, but also help the organizers or the weavers see what's there from a little bit higher viewpoint. So in this case, the way Vincent has designed it, since his troves are so beautifully architected, it allows us and it allows the people who create the trove to decide what ontology they would like down the left-hand side. So in this case, I think it's the SDGs for this group. And I picked the trove that Vincent was just presenting a little bit ago, the Transformative Impact Summit by Global Unity, which is an event that just recently happened. And so because it was an event, they decided across the top to put the data types, projects, profiles, and presentations, because that makes the most sense for this particular event. And then you can see as you scroll over it, that you can highlight the different cross sections and see how many people are there, how many projects are there. One of the nice things going from this view is that you have an opportunity then to see where there's a lot of synergy, and you have an opportunity to see where there's a lot of gaps. And that can lead to, there's no positive or negative here, it just leads to a different way to look at the data. If you're looking at it from all the nodes that they are, or you're looking at it in a list form, or you're looking at it in a card form, it's hard to see the synergy. So this gives a first pass at seeing where the synergies are so that people can make decisions based on, say, if we're trying to do something in the space of water, well, this community right now, or this event didn't have a lot of information flowing about water. So we either need to go gather more people, or we need to, we didn't categorize the data properly. Somebody may look at this and say, no, there were 3 presentations on water. We need to go back in and create a category for that. So that becomes easy to do. You can just go into anything else, click on one of the options here, and then go in, and there's, depending on your level of access, you can add private notes for yourself. Everybody can do that. You can add a comment, which then everyone can see. And in some cases, if for your access to the data, you can actually make changes. So especially if it's your own stuff, you can obviously make changes. And so each one of these, and then if you're just curious, you can just click on anything, go, what's this? And open it up, and then learn more information about the person or the project. And then because Vincent's brilliant, it's all connected into people's profiles on Catalyst, the presentation work, the videos, and everything else that goes with it. So that's a quick overview, and I'm going to stop there so that people can ask questions, or that we can dive in a little bit more to where you'd like to go. Oh, and you know what else I'm going to do? Sorry, I should have done this at the beginning. I'm going to put in chat the link to this so that you can go straight there if you want to and play around with it. Unless Vincent already did that. Maybe he did. Yes, he did.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah, that's why everybody's absorbed. Yes, I'm going to stop sharing because you're probably all in there anyway.
So is this software basically mainly for people in the Catalyst network, or can anyone create a Trove like this?
So it's a sub feature of Catalyst. So if you have a account on Catalyst, then you can create a Trove. So you just like go to create Trove, and then you can name it what you want. There's lots of different settings. But basically how it works is like the main things that you would configure when you're creating a Trove is the different views. So there's lots of different views, and some of these are in development. So that's why you see them while I'm sharing. And certain views have restrictions on like you need to have a certain type of data to create a certain type of view. So for example, one thing that we found is like a lot of people are mapping things in Airtable, and they'll go through the work of like thousands of records and then not have like a field for location. And it's like, oh, if you only had that one additional field, you could also have a map, a geographical map of all this data. And so like if you were to go here and try to add the map view, it would be like, oh, you can't because you don't have anything that has a location. But as soon as you add one thing with a location, you could have a map view. As soon as you add one thing with a start date, you could have a calendar view. So depending on the type of information, like if you have data that has connections, or you have, then you could do a Kumu integration and you could sync it with Kumu. So we're trying to kind of create a tool that lets you enable lots of different ways of viewing the same information, because that's one of the barriers that we found to like, having like lots of different tools to visualize things in different ways. So we're trying to just integrate a lot of those different ways of viewing so that, and then focusing on like the common schema of the information so that it works across those views. And if you click add, you'll see like, a lot of these are public, so anyone could add, but you'll see the type of fields that are kind of, custom for each object. But if you turn on, like if you create an event, it's going to ask you for a start and end date. So there are some fields that are specific to certain data types. So like for the Tapestry view, it'd be you would also configure like what are the data types you want to collect and what are the sectors. And yeah, that's Wendy, you're muted. Wendy, let me unmute you. Hold on.
I gotcha. Okay, so this is, sorry, I'll show another Trove. This is one that I built for one group that I'm a part of. And basically it was my way, being overwhelmed as a weaver, my way of going, of capturing all the mentions people made in email or in chat or in conversation where they said, oh, I think there's this great organization that we should eventually tap into. So this wasn't something that was part of the ecosystem, that was just one tier out. And I knew we weren't ready to map that, but I wanted to put it somewhere. And so I put it into this Trove, and it's basically just a random select. It's going to look to everyone else like a random selection of organizations and links and other projects and other things. Because it was random mentions through the course of months. And so this is my storage spot. I've got great comments on them. I have personal notes on them. And then when the Tapestry view came along, which we finally got working only about a month ago, then I could look at it and you can see as soon as this loads, you can see that the data types are different than the last Trove that I showed. It's not loading. There it goes. And I used a different I used a different ontology over here. This is the societal sectors from the Wheel of Co-Creation. And it just, this still needs a little bit of curation. So back to Vincent's point about, if I didn't tag an organization with a societal sector, which because the Tapestry wasn't active yet, I wasn't as mindful. Now I can go back into other objects and tag them, and they'll start showing more, will start showing up here. So that just giving people a sense of how that's working. And in terms of what Vincent was saying too, the different views are really pretty, they're awesome to have. And we're still working on making it easy for people to know that there's something missing or that they need to add data types or tags in order for things to show up in certain ways. And I would love any feedback people have on this, because it really is the first time we're showing it in a way that people can really interact with it in the way it was imagined in my mind. So even if just, yes, I think this is useful, and it would be even better if, it would be really helpful to know whether it's worth prioritizing some time to advance this. And if people are like, well, it's kind of nice, but that's also really helpful to me.
I'm very, very impressed by what you've done and the way you're going about doing it. I missed the beginning. How do you add information? You just mentioned, for example, that there are some entries that you didn't fill in. Do you then dive down into a database or into Airtable, or can you click on it and edit it? How does that work?
Yes. So it's a collaborative space, which is by design in the troves that Vincent has built on Catalyst. The troves themselves are collaborative. So if you have the choice when you create a trove who you're sharing it with, both as a group and as individuals. You can give them different levels of editing rights, and each object also can potentially have a different level of privacy in terms of who gets to see it and who doesn't. So all of that has to do with who gets to edit the information. Each object itself is editable. The people who add it can edit it. The people who see it can add a comment on it, and potentially also edit it depending on their access rights. So it's nice that the whole community can then have a way to interact with the data. And if you have access to edit it, then you can also watch it move around. So that's the other thing that I really liked about the Tapestry and a lot of stuff in the different Trove views, is that as you edit the pieces, if you have a view of it where it should move, say from one societal sector to another, or copy it from one societal sector to another, because now it's in two sectors, you'll see it appear there. And I think that immediate feedback is really great for engagement and really great for feeling like it makes me want to add more things to the map when I see them immediately appear. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and to just add one other thing, Airtable has been a big integration point for the Trove. So we had Jen, who had a database of mapping tools in Notion, import them into Airtable, and then we use this to map the fields. So like, these are the tags, these are the data types, these are the type subtypes, and then the email of the person who submitted it. And we have an extension in Airtable where you could do a import or a sync from multiple sources. So if you wanted, you can use a tool like Airtable to edit the information in bulk, and this information is syncing over to the Mapathon base. And then, you can filter by like who added or where things came from. I think Sam just curated some stuff here. Awesome. Thanks, Sam. But yeah, to add, you could also add directly within the Trove itself, just by clicking the form. And the cool thing about this is when you put a website in, it'll pull information from the site, but it also opens up the site on the side. So it's designed for curation, where you can actually like take, a bio from a website, and then you can enter it directly here, or you can like snag an image URL and put the cover. So it's a little bit designed for more of like curation than it is for like a social network type posting. And yeah, then you can add all the relevant tags, which can be edited later. So that's basically what adding is like. It could be through an external tool like Airtable. It could be directly within the platform, or the third option is you could put a form. So when you click add, it can open up a form that, Airtable, Google form, etc. And then you could handle the verification of the data, like to make sure, like you can decide how to filter out spam and like who can and cannot submit. And sometimes that's just a layer where you might want to review the data before you import it.
That's so cool. So user-friendly.
Thank you.
Brandon had a question.
Yes, well, just a moment ago, I think I was seeing something that is really awesome that I was kind of hoping to get into Catalyst somehow. So like there's like there's these frameworks and but then there's like a kind of a core schema for how it works. And the way Vincent had it was with you have the periodic table, you have the SDGs. And I was looking, okay, so what I kind of need is to look at who's doing sense making, who's doing spirituality, who's doing civic engagement. And then I was like, okay, so we need a new framework. We need to bring in this framework for essentially the Hanzi-Freinacht 6 New Forms of Politics. But it looked a moment ago that you essentially had a certain view that had these components, not necessarily all of those 6, and I was seeing more of those, but sense making was one of them. Spirituality was one of them. So essentially that kind of serves the purpose that we were looking to do anyways. And I don't know how you got there, where that was.
Was it a Trove Tapestry view?
Yes, I guess that's what it was, a tapestry view.
So maybe it was the societal sectors, Vincent?
Well, actually, I think so. Brandon, were you talking about this here? The database of different frameworks. So
like we are adding the Hanzi 6 New Forms of Politics as a framework.
Yes.
But then there's some ways in which these frameworks can serve as the schema for data for categorizing organizations or projects or things like that.
Yes.
And I know that the SDGs is a pretty important core framework, but then it doesn't exactly have the stuff that we need, which is why we're adding that to essentially have sense making, spirituality, civic engagement, et cetera, right? Inner awareness.
Yeah.
Now you don't so what I saw before a moment ago, you didn't have it tagged by 6 New Forms of Politics because we haven't populated that, but I think somehow it had the stuff that I was needing, and I don't know how you got there.
So basically under the settings, you can say like, we want the 6 forms of politics and the SDGs to be used to categorize the data. And then when you add a new object, the options available will be pulling all of the main sectors from those 2 frameworks. So there's theory, empirical, and then if you were to create a tapestry view, right, then you would basically be on that axis, seeing whichever sector set that you chose. So for the transformational, for the tapestry Wendy created, she decided to use one framework, and that was the taxonomy. And so we're trying to so GaiaNet will be presenting next and showing how they're using like a different taxonomy system for categorizing things. So you can kind of choose which set of categories to use.
Yeah, so Brandon, the one I was using is the societal sectors from the Wheel of Co-Creation.
Wheel of Co-Creation.
Which is Barbara Marx Hubbard's ontology.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll look into that.
So if you were looking for something with spirituality in it, which I heard you say a couple times, she has that is included in that ontology.
Yeah, it could actually be that what I thought I needed to add was really just a subset of what Barbara Marx Hubbard already has with that Wheel of Co-Creation. I just wasn't aware of that. So it's kind of cool to have, maybe some sort of a way of correlating between these things that are kind of similar to each other to begin with.
Agreed, at least nested one inside the other. Yeah.